Welcome to the AI in Manufacturing podcast here on Industry 4.0 TV. I'm your host, Kudzai Manditereza, and in today's topic, we will discuss how to build innovation teams, focusing more on culture, agility, and leadership in technology. And my guest on this episode is Von Tucker, who is a technologist, venture builder, and strategic innovator, helping shape the future of commerce. And is currently the VP of Harbor Lockers by Luxer One. Van, it's such a great pleasure to have you on the show today. Welcome.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me on here. It's always fun jumping on, talking on calls, and talking about AI and innovation is something I'm super passionate about.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So maybe could you kind of begin by introducing yourself to our audience, tell us a bit about your background and give us an overview of Harbor Locals by Alexa One and your role in the company.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the VP of Technology Partnerships. We are a company where we develop and manufacture smart partial lockers. That was our core initial business. So we built package lockers. If you see an Amazon locker around your city, these are Amazon lockers where people can deliver your packages instead of going to your house to alternate delivery locations. We do very similar. We're based in North America. And then we have over 10,000 apartment buildings here in the United States. And I helped start a new division where we deploy public lockers around cities where any company can access these lockers on demand.
Awesome. Yeah. So, I think all the insights that you're going to have here are going to be very relevant for our audience who are sort of like more or less in the same space as you are, as far as IoT is concerned, AI. So, many of our members are digital manufacturing leaders who, in many cases, are in charge of putting together and leading innovation teams that are sort of like the engine of driving digital transformation in manufacturing and industrial enterprises. And really, they are tasked with finding ways to rapidly bring in new technologies, digital technologies like AI, advanced analytics into their organizations, as primarily because a whole lot of these organizations are facing a lot of pressure, whether it's economic, competition, and regulatory, and so forth. So, what I want us to kind of like begin with here is to get your sense on what you see as being the biggest leadership challenge across industries when it comes to sort of like building and introducing something new into an organization when you're under pressure.
Yeah, that's a good question. So, a lot of pressures. Everyone's at how do they move faster? How do you innovate quicker? And that it really comes down to resetting your culture in your company. So that is, the way you did things 2 years ago, even last year, the adoption of change is just accelerating where customers want things faster. They're looking for another solution. So that's one of the biggest things I see when you're working with change, is really embracing a culture mindset. And that's not just from the executive team saying, hey, we need to develop some new technologies. How do we stay ahead of the curve? Especially the buzz with AI and robotics and manufacturing. It also comes down to people on the floor. So that's the biggest thing I see is like a culture mindset shift, but also not overthinking things. Things are often very complex. You go look at how you embrace a new workflow change or implement a new product to market. I'm a big believer in just keeping things super simple. What can be the 80-20 rule or of a product or a solution, and actually get it in hand of your customers to actually give you real feedback, from that, and then iterate on top of it. Or just build, if it's a more behind the scenes on the manufacturing side, how do you get an improvement done on the 80-20 rule as well? Make something that change and start building on top of it, on a kind of an agile framework, each month, each quarter, keep building, building, building. So instead of taking that idea that you make, oh, let's try this on a spreadsheet or PowerPoint presentation, take it, and actually implement it fast as you can, and then continuously innovate on top of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to unpacking more, around the topic of agility and culture, a bit later on here. But for now, I just kind of like want to get your take on what I believe is kind of like one of the most important, issues, because with a lot of these teams, it's a very demanding, task. You've got to kind of like really learn a whole lot of new skills, and then, as you mentioned, maybe you're facing a whole lot of pressure from, the executive and things like that. So how should, manufacturing leaders sort of like, detect those warning signs that some people within their teams are sort of like, burning out, to avoid, any issues with that?
Yeah, to detect, that's what comes down to quality. You often see when things, burnout and issues start popping up at the end. Do you have errors in your different products you're releasing? And that's where you can often say, hey, this person was doing amazing work, a month ago, 2 weeks ago. What's changed recently when you start seeing impact from products? That's the big thing, how you can actually attribute and track issues. And that's the easiest way to, see production time taking longer. In the one thing I really see is like actual in errors that may need that you typically won't see before. So that's one way you really stay in touch is, you can, if you, as a manager on the floor, you can often see it by their personality. Are they energized when they show up? Those are ways that you can really you can identify burnout really quickly. Is this their engagement, that the energy and passion that they might have not bring to the workplace anymore? And you can only see that on day one, any moment. And that's something you can easily course correct, by working with that person and things like that. And also you can see by other quality of work issues and when it comes into the manufacturing space. So again, it's like an art to manage all this. There's no one set way, hey, this is going to work for each person. Has their different areas. One person, and that also comes into personal life situations and how they handle different pressures and different environmental factors as well. So, is what I say when it comes to managing burnout, there is no set way, but the best way is really talking to your individuals and being proactive on it and versus reactive. So instead of you see something, move quicker on just tackling those things, versus holding it back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think you mentioned something, really important here, that, it all comes down to culture, right? So if, like, the reason why you see a whole lot of burnout in some cases may be, coming back to the foundation on which you're building, right? On. So, and like you said, I mean, a whole lot of this is more of an art, right? But when it comes to leadership, are there some element that you can point out that you believe are so critical for leadership to focus on, as far as kind of like really enforcing that culture or cultivating that culture of high performance?
Yeah, I think a culture of high performance often become by joining a company that has a shared mission and what you do. So why do you come to work every day? What is that mission that brings you to actually not just say, hey, I'm just a cog in the wheel, I'm building something. How can you actually say, hey, we're actually going out and changing the world? That is one of the things that, you always want to inspire against is kind of having that mission on how you can actually get people to show up to the office, you know, show up to the factory floor, and it's across the whole company. So that's one thing I would say is everyone really has that shared mission. So here at Luxer One, we're on this mission to relentlessly improve how the world receives goods. So that is our overall arching mission. How do we improve the world to receive goods? And that comes through our locker technology, the software, the manufacturing, the customer service, every single touch point, we're all on this shared mission is just relentlessly improving that mission. So that gets us from day one all aligned on what we're doing. And then in that kind of also helps us with our core values. That is another part of it as well. You make every company, every employee should know what your core values are. One thing we do great at our company is every Monday, we have a Monday Minute where we actually share within the whole company a featured core value. And we show how individuals in the company are living that in real time every day. We call people out, hey, this person hit this core value. And that's one of the areas you want to have as an organization is don't just go make a mission statement, put and make core values and not embrace them every day. The way you do that is actually reminding everyone what the mission is, and then also appreciating and really setting the benchmark with examples when you see individuals living up to his core values.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I mean, I guess one of the things that is new, maybe as far as the manufacturing is environment is concerned, is this uh, you know the agility to be agile with sort of like these digital technologies, right? Because a lot of the things that you're going to be sort of like building requires you to sort of like have a hypothesis. Maybe you want to optimize a production line, so you come up with a hypothesis and you want to be able to rapidly test that and be agile and innovate faster, which may be something that a whole lot of uh, sort of like team members within the manufacturing space are not used to, or in some cases they you introduce an AI tool, but it's hard to sustain that because very quickly they default to their Excel spreadsheet, their pen and paper. How do you sort of like structure your organization for that, for sustaining innovation, and also be agile with how they're sort of like solving the problems, using technology to solve problems?
Yeah, so sustaining change in manufacturing is something that for myself, I come from a background of software. That's where you can really be very agile with software. So if you have a bug or an improvement, you can literally just type on your keyboard, hey, add this new feature, and you can deploy that update within seconds to the cloud, and then your customers have it. When you come into manufacturing, you don't have that flexibility where, hey, I want to be, you're not as agile on your changes. So you need to be a little more intentional on your product development cycle to kind of think through those little edge cases, because a little change, one little product change can take weeks to develop, even through like an R&D lab experience. So for me, how do you build that very simple change? Say if you're developing a new product, especially, is how do you get this product to initial form factor in your hands so you can actually start using it, actually take it out to the customer as well, start getting customer feedback. You see I talk a lot about customers, and then start making a little fine tuning as you go. So again, simplifying everything you do. And one of the Tesla is a great example of it. A lot of the Tesla vehicles don't release years on their cars. You don't go buy a 2024 Tesla, 2023. They're continuously improving their hardware on the factory, releasing new versions, tweaking these things as they go. And that's where I see when it comes to manufacturing is a continuous improvement on your product. You're taking feedback and on a cadence basis. This could be weekly, monthly, quarterly, implementing those changes to your product and releasing them and releasing fixes and improvements as you go. And Tesla is one of the gold examples of that, is how they just keep improving the manufacturing of their processes to streamline and making it more efficient, and also fixing any issues or improvements on the vehicles in real time, kind of following a very software philosophy to manufacturing. And that's where the future of manufacturing is kind of balancing this agility that you typically have seen in software and bringing it into hardware in the manufacturing space, but also leveraging different technologies to R&D quicker, to develop a small R&D area within your department, in your factory, your manufacturing, where you can actually develop your ideas without distracting your core manufacturing flow. Because you have your core manufacturing product, you got customers you need to serve, you got products that you need to sell. You just can't distract your core product team and your manufacturing lines to innovate. So building a small as it could be, R&D side where you can test different initiatives, use it as a sandbox, build out the SOPs, get it and fine tune it before implementing change directly to the core flow, is a big thing I see in manufacturing, is really balancing, the software approach of agility, continuously improve, and then also having a strong R&D side where you can develop products quickly without distracting your core business.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, now kind of like want to linger a bit on kind of like this, how to balance, sort of like, agility, and sort of like how do you sort of like keep producing, goods. Because maybe to use your example, with Tesla, one would argue that Tesla is a relatively, new company. I would say the digital native company in some ways, compared to say a manufacturing company that's been operating since 100 years ago, where they've got like old pieces of equipment that are just dragging them. How do you balance that need to keep the old stuff going and sort of like, gradually, and bearing in mind that there's a whole lot of pressure, and sort of like gradually introducing this, how long should a POC be in a research phase, right? How should kind of like balance that? Maybe if you could share your thoughts on that.
Yeah, this is a very tricky thing of balancing, when you come to younger companies, embracing change in a younger stage company and at a smaller scale is significantly easier than a company that has been out for multiple generations to make those changes. And and that is, again, really comes down to culture. How do you embrace a new culture, embrace change? And that's the biggest thing, when it comes to it. And a lot of people do not like change. You've been doing a certain thing a certain way. Going and embracing change, even operationally on the people level, is often the most difficult part. And then also you have other technologies which, have been around for a while. How do you actually retool? You can't go retool all your manufacturing equipment in real time. So personally, myself, we recently acquired a company. It's been over 100 years old company that we acquired, a manufacturing company. And, personally, I'm not involved in day-to-day operations on this company. So, but,
Yeah.
the key thing is, we came in that company. I've been in business for over 100 years, manufacturing metal, metal manufacturing, and what we saw was embrace that change. Hey, bring that energy in. Hey, guys, you've been doing amazing work for the last generations, and then to come in and really get people excited and bring that spark. And that comes down to, a lot of times, it's the way you communicate from the team and get them re-energized. And hey, and that is the future. You're joining the next phase of the company, and get them involved, take their ideas. It's amazing. These people on the floor, most of the people on the floor are going to have the best feedback. They're working on the machines. They have ideas that they might have been holding back. They may go home after work and talking to their significant other, saying, man, I wish I can do this. I wish I can do that. So that's the main thing you'd get, is like really talking to your teammates, and really kind of learning what their problems are. And it's one thing to learn about their problems, but a lot of them also have ideas and solutions to improve that. If they've given the opportunity, they can actually help you do that. So, and then, re-educating is that other big component. Is how do you educate people on different technologies? And that is very difficult, is actually how do you educate people to do new processes? And that's where, for older companies especially, is, it comes down to that energy you bring to it. It's not just saying, hey, we got this new tool, this new AI, this new robotic device, it's going to do this. It's also, you need to explain the benefits that brings to them. It's like, hey, this is going to let you do less manual labor, so you can spend more time doing what you really are passionate about, your expert skill on. Or this is going to let us, have less, more favorable working conditions. So, those are things you really need to bring. Every change that you bring to the organization is saying how it impacts that individual personally. That's what gets them excited. And, you need to really focus on the benefits, and also to be listening to them on a culture level. But when it comes, that's where the way we look at things is, but also just like, as much as how difficult it is sometimes, but pulling that band-aid off and embracing change. Unfortunately, when you do embrace change, and the fastest way to do change is with radical change. Sometimes it's hard to slowly ramp things up, because the slower something goes, the longer something takes, the bigger chance it will never work out. So doing rapid change in the organization is risky, but that is sometimes you have to do to go to the next level. And when you do that rapid change, there is a chance there is some individuals in the company that may not like the rapid change and leave your company, and that will be short-term losses when that happens, but there will be long-term gains because you've made that radical decision that you needed to do to enter the next level. But again, it all comes down to really having everyone on board on your mission and your values before you start doing a lot of these things. If you just start going in and making a lot of change and not communicating why you're doing it, but if you're really showing how it's meeting the long-term vision of the company, be very transparent with them what your goals are, what the vision is, and how this all aligns, it gets much more buy-in into it.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because one of the things that I do have a day job at HiveMQ, where I work with a lot of teams, digital innovation teams in manufacturing, and in many cases, it is sort of like a combination of OT engineers and IT engineers, and these are people who traditionally do not work together. They've got the different ways of operating. They've got even physical separation as far as network segmentation. But now there's this new initiative that requires a leader to put them together for this common vision of the company. And I've seen kind of like a big divide just in many different ways, whether it's, for example, to your point, someone in the OT space may have a way of solving problems quickly, which IT doesn't agree with, because they want to govern that, they want to put some security around that. So there's this push and pull. So maybe from your perspective, how should leaders sort of like build that environment that fosters mutual respect, and sort of like build that culture of a shared vision to kind of like bring these two teams together for a common purpose?
Yeah, the days of having everything in silo departments are over for sure, as the blend of technology and manufacturing is all blending. So that is, how do you get your product teams and your actual hardware manufacturing teams working together as a unified team is critical to really be competitive in this space. And that's where the most successful companies today are working very closely in tandem between, not just their IT and manufacturing, it's also their sales, product, and marketing. And this is where, that is, all these lines are beginning blurring together to really accelerate speed on market, and also meeting the evolving needs of the customer on what you're developing. So especially if you're developing high-tech products that are in IoT and robotics, anything that's into the high-tech industry, that lead time to develop product is shrinking significantly. So with that is really, it's exciting to see, a lot of these people that might have actually not worked together, and when they start working together, they start, man, I wish I've been doing this for years. So that's where like the form of like actual getting some quick wins is the best way to do it. What is some small little things you could do? I'm not talking about, hey, let's go golfing on the golf course and do some team bonding event, but how do you can actually work together and as a team and get a win fast as you can as a team? This could be the smallest workflow change, product enhancements, but how can you get something done in 1 week, 2 weeks together? Not a long process where the energy gets faded off. The biggest thing is, how do you make a radical small? It says I'm saying radical, but a actual tangible thing that these individuals can do to collaborative together, and that becomes the building block that can be built more together. And then also it creates story and buy-in from everyone when you can say, you know what, Tom and Adam just got done doing this together. This is the first time, and you can tell people, hey, they from this department and this is what they developed. Come see it visually, and this is the improvement. They got it done in a week, just by breaking these barriers down and actually collaborative. Or sometimes the engineering team and software team are in totally different regions. It's very common, to jump on the plane, fly down to the factory, work side by side, and not just so then do a little tour and say, this is how we do it. Get your hands dirty, go in and actually do some small little tweak. And then it's amazing what people do. That's what brings people love seeing finished outcomes. The more outcomes you can deliver together faster, that is how you make change. And it could be just, these are just building blocks, a little pebble of a rock, a little pebble, then you're going to have a rock, then you're going to have a boulder, then eventually you're going to have a mountain. And that's where you need to kind of focus on to, is these little pebbles, but try to get the pebbles fast as you can.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I mean, you've done a good job of really painting this picture of kind of like why culture is important really for like complex environment. Maybe at the risk of getting in kind of in deep into the weeds here, are there specific tools, team rituals, or frameworks that you've used to help teams sort of like stay grounded and creative and resistant, agile, and all this stuff that we've been talking about?
Yeah, so there is your traditional manufacturing frameworks that a lot of different individual companies run when it comes to running the framework. But when it comes to organizational frameworks that gets everyone aligned the most is the entrepreneur operating systems, called EOS. EOS is a framework which organizations of any size can run on. You could be a factory with 5 employees running, and then you can set up this concept of rocks, what I'm talking about. Every quarter, people have rocks and deliverables, scorecards, defines the vision. And this is where the entrepreneur operating frameworks, called EOS, is one of the best tools out there, which organizations can really use on even your own. So if you're a part of a company and it's like, oh man, we don't use EOS, you can actually set EOS up just for your own division or your own team. You don't have to be having your whole company using the EOS framework. You can actually go use the EOS framework yourself. There's a book called Traction. The Traction book talks about a lot of things I'm talking about vision, goals, and collaborating departments and making that radical change. And that's a good thing I'd recommend, is just reading that Traction book. It talks a lot about the EOS framework. When you start implementing the EOS framework, you see a lot of different success stories, how it really brings teams together on the shared vision. And then you can start executing more tactically on your different unique process for your company of how you actually manage your projects. But that helps get everyone aligned within all your departments, not just manufacturing. It could be sales, marketing, product development. And like I was saying before, you can even just use yourself as well.
Great stuff. So maybe to kind of like just sum everything up here. If you were advising, say, a head of digital manufacturing or chief AI officer, and like as you mentioned, someone from like a sales leader who's starting on this journey really of sort of like building up innovation capability, what are kind of like those 2-3 key pieces of advice that would you sort of like encourage them to focus on as far as being able to succeed with that mission?
Yeah, so if I was an AI leader, a few things I would do initially is try to get some quick wins fast as you can. How can you build some actual use case stories of some quick wins? So say if you're an AI leader and you want to bring some AI to release, is, hey, go spin up a small little pilot, a small little tool. Go find something that already exists. You don't need to go build something custom, to solve that unique problem. Maybe you can even be a chat support bot, and then you build it with some of that knowledge as a knowledge repo, and that could be used internally just to inspire it. And that is the main thing, is, to get that use case going fast as you can and use that as the building block of what could be the next phase. So my first thing to do is try to find a quick win fast as you can and keeping it simple as you can to get it in the hands to everyone and just start that story. The next thing is building a small R&D arm, a desk even, where you can develop R&D products quicker, in-house. So you can set up a 3D printer, some basic components where you can actually start ideating with the product hardware team, the technology teams on how you can continuously and try different ideas. And then the third thing I would do is really get the things that you develop and show it to your customers and get their feedback. Even if it's a widget that is 3D printed, go take it to one of your long-term customers you've been with for a while and say, hey, customer, our product team has this idea. Let's get some feedback on it. And that is one of the other components you want to do is try to get feedback fast as you can. When you get that feedback in from the customer, that you get more executive buy-in to continue the investment to take it to the next level. But it also gets your team excited when they see that you're solving real customer problems. And that is how you always want to do is just really keep that energy going. And that is the three things I would focus on.
Awesome stuff. Yeah. So I think as we, wrap up, let's kind of like, zoom out and sort of like look at the bigger picture. As a tradition on this podcast, I know often like to ask our guests to give us a prediction where AI is going in manufacturing in the next, couple of months, years, depending on how you see it. So maybe, in your case, I would like to get a sense on, where do you see that innovation culture headed, and what is exciting you the most about how teams are being built around innovation.
Yeah, so AI is already mainstream in a lot of different ways, especially the industry that I'm in. I'm a daily user of different AI tools. So, today it's pretty much the benchmark, that everyone in the teams, especially managers and leaders, at minimum need using ChatGPT just to handle some basic ideation of different things. When it comes to the future, AI is already entered code, developing code very quick with Cursor and other tools to actually develop proof of concept applications, really quickly that usually would took weeks or months into days. And now the next level is when manufacturing comes, how it can actually start developing products more efficiently, less material being used. That's where I see the AI coming in heavily when manufacturing is really optimizing processes, very streamlining way. So how do you use AI to monitor your process, develop it, throw it into an AI, or actually develop, you can do workplace process management that's already out today. And then also the way you design your products. How can you develop them to be more affordable, stronger, and then develop them quicker? There's kind of three things that you can do, to do. And that's where AI is going to come in as well, is just help build those out. And so that's already happening today and to continue more in the next, year. When we look 5 years out, when it comes to actual AI, the adoption of more and more robotics with AI empowered things, robotics isn't new to manufacturing. Automation is not new to manufacturing. This has been going on for hundreds of years, with technology, machinery coming. The different level is going to be is as the robotics enter in these, people are going to be, today, most of the machinery is fixed units where you have robotic arms, you have some conveyor belts, you do have some robotic items that can move your parts to other parts of the warehouse, especially in warehousing. The next level is you're going to be working with robotic agents. These are agents you already see in some factories on more of a proof of concept level. But over the next 5 years, it will be very common for individuals to be working with a human for performing certain tasks with a actual robotic agent to be working on tasks with them together. So that's going to be the biggest shift, where people need to be used to working with robotic agents. Humans already work today with AI agents in digital areas for content writing, marketing, sales, medical. It's very common on those areas. The next level over the next 5 years is going to be a huge shift in manufacturing with robotics and agents working together with the human and manufacturing space. So, and and then I'm like, there is a lot of things to make, but there will be people need to get used to working with agents and robots. And then if you look into 10 years out, the rise of fully automated manufacturing facilities is to continue to rise. You're going to have more and more. There will still need to be maintenance workers, and that is the future I see. Is people, instead of actually working on the finished good, there's going to be individuals that need to become specialized on optimizing these agents, working on the robotics. There's still going to be a lot of jobs out there for this. They're not going to, so that is where a lot of the opportunity is in manufacturing, especially for labor. There's a lot of people are getting scared. Oh man, where's the jobs going to go? Self-driving cars with Waymo, robotics on it. Where's people going to work? Is it going to be all AI? Um, there will be displacement for sure on the industry, and that's happened in every single phase of technology evolution. There has been job displacement, but at the same time, there has been new jobs created. And that's where I see the future as. There'll be a lot of new jobs that we're going to be talking about in the next 10 years that don't even exist today. And that's where I'm super excited on.
Yep, absolutely. It sounds really exciting. So then we will provide links to your, website, social, and all the contact details where people can find you to learn more about your work and get in touch with you. But before we close this session, do you have any last words to our audience?
Yeah, so we're here today is really sharing what we do in innovation teams. But if you want to learn more of what we do here at Hard by Luxer One, we make smart partial lockers. If you live in the United States, there's a high chance you might use one of our products at your apartment facility. So if you want to learn more what we're doing, visit our website at harborlockers.com. That's where we're building our public locker network where anyone can access throughout the United States. If you want to check out some other products, go visit luxer1.com, where we offer a variety of commercial products, apartment lockers, and we also offer products into the warehousing space as well for asset management and things like that. So if you want to do more, check it out. Feel free to email me at vantucker@harborlockers.com as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Van, again, for taking the time to share your insight with the audience. Really appreciate it.
Cool. Thank you for having me on.